Welcome to another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I am your host, Michael. Off me again this week is my co-host, Kent. How you doing, Kent?
Good. How you doing?
Hang in there, man. Hang in there. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a show slash podcast slash blog that discusses all things boxing. Our motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. There are two main places to find information on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You can go to the official blog page for the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The address for that is p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, where you can find not only past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast, but you can also find articles from your early and soon in 2014. My co-host Kent. You can also go to the podcast page for the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, and the address for that is p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com, where you can find all past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. On the blog page and the podcast page, you will not only find episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report and blogs and whatnot, you can find information on how to get in contact with me and Kent throughout social media. And you can find out links to where to find the Pound for Pound Boxing Report on Facebook, on YouTube, on Google+, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on WordPress, on Podomatic, on Pinterest. We got a Pinterest board, the RSS feed, and a link to where you can donate your account. And the address for that is donateyouraccount.com/P4pboxingreport. Let me repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4pboxingreport. Please be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy, and donate your Twitter account. And what happens is that any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, and the handle for the Twitter P4P Boxing Report Twitter page is at P4P Boxing Report. Any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account would automatically retweet any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. With all those homework matters out the way, let's get the show started and do a recap of what happened this past week in boxing. Headlined, of course, by the rematch between Bermane Stiverne as he fought Chris Arreola in a rematch at the Galen Center in LA on ESPN, and I'll make note of that for a reason. We will talk about that later. It is rare, Kent, that in today's period that you see a good heavyweight bout, particularly among the top heavyweights in the world, top flight fighters in the heavyweight division. We got that this past Saturday. Terrific contest. Stiverne scoring a 6-round stoppage over Arreola. And the key was, while Arreola made adjustments to his bout, it was the power of Stiverne that ultimately proved to be the deciding factor. Again, I give kudos credit for adjusting. They fought the first time. They fought previously. Stiverne won by decision. This time this was for the WBC heavyweight title. Stiverne won, and in the process becoming the first Haitian to win a heavyweight title. After a shaky round one for Arreola, he really made adjustments. He fought on the front foot. He was very aggressive, made very good use of the jab, went up and down. I was wondering what was wrong with Stiverne. I had the same thought in my head that I had with Timothy Bradley. I was wondering what he was doing. But at the end of the day, it seemed like, in assessing hindsight being 2020, it seemed like Stiverne knew ultimately that no matter what Arreola was doing, that he could hurt him. And again, as I said before, it was the power of Stiverne that ultimately proved the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll tell you right off the bat, and I knew the fact in round one, right close to the end of the first round, there was a shot that Stiverne landed, and Arreola stumbled, and he stumbled backwards, and I knew right at that point, I said to myself, yep, Stiverne can still hurt him. Stiverne has the power to hurt Arreola. And that was the key, I thought. I think Arreola made some good adjustments in round 2, 3, and 4. He went to the body, he used the jab effectively. His work rate was so much better. I mean, through those rounds, I believe he drew over 60 punches a round compared to the entire fight, the entire first fight, where he averaged, I believe, 25 or 30 punches. So he did pick up the work rate. He was much busier. He had more of a purpose in those rounds. Round one was sort of a feeling out round, but Stiverne actually, was able to land some big shots and push Arreola back a little bit, and that was Stiverne had a good round one. 2, 3, and 4 were definitely Arreola rounds. He was going to the body, effectively using the jab to keep Stiverne on the ropes. He was fighting very effectively, pushing, when he pushed Stiverne back on the ropes. That's when he did it the most effective work. In round 5, Arreola came out a little flat, and that was the first warning sign that he had hit a wall. To me, I mean, going into the fight, he looked in fantastic shape, but I always questioned, did he overtrain? Because that was the best Arreola's ever looked.
I believe he came in with 9 in terms of the weight, in terms of
yeah, and
the difference from his previous fight, right?
Yep, 9 pounds, and you know what? A lot of people say, well, that's good. He came in 9 pounds under, and I agree with that. But at the same time, it's the way he lost the weight. Did he crash all the way down? Did he take off the weight the right way, or did he just completely crash down and just to make weight, to be in good physical shape without really doing the proper things to get down to the weight? There's always a healthy way of losing weight, especially for fighters. But if you crash all the way down, that's not going to help you. It drains you. It takes all your energy. I mean, you may have a burst of energy early on, but as the fight goes on, you begin to slow down. You become lethargic. You slow down. You don't have the same, just the energy level wasn't there. In round 5, you could start to see that energy level starting to drop. And I felt that round, Stiverne did enough to win it. I know a lot of people still gave Arreola that round, but I didn't think he did enough in that round. He wasn't as busy. Then in round 6, it was evident that he had just hit a wall. He had come out in the early part. He was pursuing Stiverne, and Stiverne caught him with an overhand right on the temple and dropped him. It was a delayed reaction. Stiverne landed, and as Arreola went to move, his knees buckled and he went down, and he was really hurt badly. I mean, that's the worst I've ever seen Arreola hurt in a fight. We've never really seen him that hurt. I mean, the only fight we've seen, the fight, the first.
But don't you think that was just as much? I was going to say, don't you think that's as much of a product of where the punch landed, because it was a punch behind the ear, sensitive temple shot?
Yeah, I think it had to do with the fact that a temple shot tends to discombobulate you, and it short circuits everything in your nervous system in a way, and I think that was a debilitating shot. And Arreola got up, and he was in bad shape, and you could see he was in bad shape, and then Stiverne pounced on him again, landed another shot on that in about the same area, and Arreola went into the ropes and stumbled down again, and it was another knockdown. And I thought at this point Jack Reese would stop the fight, but Jack gave him every chance in the world, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Arreola was the guy. He was being touted in this fight, both by the promotion and ESPN, who did, I'll say right now, ESPN, I never heard a broadcast so biased for Arreola in my life. I mean, they gave no credit to Stiverne whatsoever until he stopped him. Then it was all the praise in the world. But during the fight, and up to the pre-fight build-up, they didn't even treat Stiverne like he existed. But then after the second knockdown, Arreola gets up. The ref asks him, "Are you sure you can continue?" I'm like, what do you think the guy's gonna say? Is he gonna say no? To the heavyweight championship of the world, of course you're gonna say yeah. So they let him go, and then Arreola took a couple more shots. He stumbled into the ropes, and Jack Reese stepped in and stopped him.
And I know you talked about the bias of ESPN, and you're right about that. Before we go on and talk about the future for Stiverne, I think we do have to give ESPN some credit for deciding to pick up this bout. Um, and the fight itself made for great, entertaining contest, great atmosphere at the Galen Center, in front of basically Arreola's home crowd. Um, the crowd, the venue, the fight itself, the fact that, from what I understand, this was the highest rated bout on ESPN in going back to 2003, I believe. Let's talk about the fact that ESPN decides that, and what could that mean for the network and for boxing in the future, because I think if ESPN is smart about this, they will look at the viewers, the ratings that they got, and decide to maybe air more, not just heavyweight championship bouts, but more championship bouts in general. Because I can see a scenario where ESPN could say, look, this did very well for us. Let's see if we can get another championship bout featuring this fighter from this division, this fighter from that division, and have a scenario in which you just don't have championship boxing just on HBO and on Showtime. Bring it back a little bit and have boxing maybe on more localized cable news instead of premium cable channels, if you will.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I know that, you know,
The key, of course, is HBO is ESPN opening up its wallets to make such a move.
yeah, I think ESPN got, they did the right thing by airing the card on Saturday. They only aired 2 fights, but it really was a step in the right direction for ESPN. I think personally, if you ask me, I think they need to keep doing this. They need to keep doing these type of fights, probably championship fights, because that's where the attraction will be. With landmark, like title fights. That's where they should be. And as far as having these big cards, they need to have title fights. That's the only way they're going to cut into like HBO or Showtime. I don't know how much they invested in Arreola personally, because it seemed like a pro Arreola venture. And to be honest with you, they just happened to back the wrong horse in the fight. It doesn't mean that they should stop doing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they avoided the heavyweight division because their horse lost. And I think it was a part of the reason why they aired it is to get to promote an American heavyweight. Now that their horse lost, I don't know what they plan on doing, but I think the ratings were excellent, and I think they should continue doing title fights.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Let's talk about the future right quick for Stiverne, WBC champion now. Vlad Klitschko, who's universally the best heavyweight in the world, we all know this. Following his fight with Leopai, he's talked about wanting the winner of Arreola and Stiverne. That means he wants Stiverne in the fight, but the WBC's method that Stiverne fight Deontay Wilder, hot American heavyweight prospect right now, who a lot of people talking up by very varied opinions on him. We both had our issues with Deontay Wilder on this show and on other boxing podcasts. I say that personally because I've went at it with a few folks. It looks like the Wilder fight will happen for Stiverne. Talk about a potential Stiverne Wilder fight, because I look at it right now, I cannot see that fight going the distance. Both guys, Stiverne and Wilder, have power. If Arreola could shake up Stiverne like he did in the second fight this past Saturday, Wilder can. But of course, I don't trust Wilder's chin. Should this fight happen, it looks like it will later on this year, it's going to be TNT and somebody's getting knocked out. The question is, who gets to who first?
See, the thing is with me is I think a lot of I think Wilder is a puncher. I just don't think he's the puncher that his record suggests. I think a lot of it is about a bunch of fluff. Okay, I really don't think he's the this puncher that everybody claims. Like he delivers these highlight reel knockouts, but who is he doing it against? That's the key. He's not doing it against A or B level fighters. He's doing it against C minus, D level, and F level fighters. You know, I can't even look at, you know, the fight with Malik Scott at anything, because he essentially folded up shot and quit after the first decent shot that landed, that didn't even land really solidly. So I can't, you know, I can't assess him on that. I mean, all I know is the fights I've seen him in, he's knocked out guys, you know, that are just below a certain level, below a decent level. I mean, this is the problem, okay? What is he going to do the night his power can't hurt somebody?
And for me, when you look at Wilder, he's tall, but he's a guy that doesn't fight tall. And we both know his flaws and how he opens himself up, not just on the defense, but particularly when he attacks and he lets the punches flow. What would happen against Stiverne, who, when he wants to, can show a very good jab, can have a very good jab? How will Wilder deal with that? And how will Wilder deal with the counter-punching ability of Stiverne?
Personally, I don't know how he deals with it, because I think for the most part, Arreola he has no defense whatsoever. He's there to be hit. His footwork is atrocious as far as, you know, as a heavy, as him being a prospect or even a borderline contender. He's probably a contender. I'll just be honest, but I don't think he's that much of a contender. I just think there's a lot of hype behind him. Until he shows something different, I don't know what I'm just gonna keep it like that. I mean, and I think he's gotten this opportunity based on who he knows, not what he knows or what kind of skill he has. I think he's just in a power position because of the people he's around, and that's good, well and good and everything. But Stiverne's a different type of breed. Okay, I'm gonna just be honest with you. Everybody says, well, oh, Stiverne's been knocked out in his career. Yes, he has been stopped, but he wasn't stretched. The ref stopped the fight, and that was against I forgot his name off the top of my head, but he was a journeyman, but he's a dangerous journeyman. I think like 12 of his 14 wins came by knockout, so you know you're dealing with a puncher, and he's durable. I remember the guy's only been stopped once or twice in his career. He took David 2 at a distance, so that just tells you that the guy can take a shot. This guy that Stiverne lost to, and he was stopped on his feet. He wasn't stretched. He was stopped on his feet. He got hurt. He got stopped on his feet, and the ref stepped in because he wasn't responding. Other than that, he has not had no real moments in his fights. I mean, yeah, he has had a few moments, dicey moments, but other than that, we haven't really seen him hurt. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I just think that people are overselling Wilder's power. They're overselling it. They think because he's stretched. Listen, anybody can brutally knock out that level of opposition if they have decent power or above average power. Yes, they can do that. But I just don't think he's that big of a puncher. I think he can punch, but he's not this, this George Foreman type of puncher. I just don't see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even as we criticize Wilder, I give him a little bit more credit for his power than you do. And again, I can see a scenario where Wilder, with his power, he's pretty fast for a guy his size. I could see him where a scenario where he could jump on Stiverne early and blitz him and take him out that way. So it should the fight happen, when the fight happens, it should be a very good fight, very exciting fight. And again, I cannot see a scenario where this fight goes the distance. This is going to be TNT and somebody's getting knocked and what out. We took the week off last week, and during that time there was a pretty interesting bout that took place in Japan. And again, we're about to get into some boxing nerdery here. Kazuta Ioka, former strawweight, junior flyweight champion, highly regarded, particularly in Japan, his home country, and throughout Asia, was seeking a third world title bout on May the 7th in Osaka, Japan, as he fought a newly crowned champion, Amnat Ruenroeng of Japan. Of Thailand. And what many felt would be a win for Ioka turned into a loss as Ruenroeng. And we saw the bout. Ken, I sent you the link towards the bout. Thoroughly outboxed Ioka over 12 rounds to retain his IBF flyweight belt in Osaka. Like I said, a lot of people consider that an upset, but in closer inspection, Ken, you thought the bout was not really much of an upset. Give some background on Ruenroeng as well as your analysis of the bout.
Well, first of all, Ruenroeng was a 2008 Olympian. He was a decorated fighter, boxer in his amateur boxer in his country of Thailand. Some of his amateur, credentials include wins over Kazuta Ioka as an amateur and Zhu Shimei. So that tells you right there the man can fight. He's he's a feel-good story. That's what he is. I'll just reference an article. We'll make sure it gets out there. There's an article today in Ring Magazine on their website with a Q&A with Amnat Ruenroeng, and he talks about his beginnings, and he talks about his plans for the future now that he's a champion, and just a real insight into the guy, and it's a really good read. I suggest it. I'm gonna make sure that link gets out there to everyone so they can check that out. But I didn't think it was that much of an upset. I thought it was a eye raiser. Like, really, like that's what I heard. I was like, really? That's an interesting result. I was a little surprised, but not terribly surprised, because this simply, Ruenroeng's background. I mean, the guy can fight. The guy was fought on the amateur level, fought some of the best fighters, in that part of the world, and he has wins against them, and he's much better fighter than I originally thought. If you watch him, he's a very, very, he's a good boxer. He's a very, very good boxer. He's a very smart boxer. He knows how to execute a game plan.
He has outstanding footwork.
Yes, very good footwork. Very good footwork for a guy that's, began in Muay Thai. A lot of Muay Thai fighters don't have the best footwork in the world, but he has very, very good footwork. He knows how to cut down the ring. He knows how to use his ability. I like he has good hand speed. He has good, he just has a very good boxing IQ. And he was able to just neutralize everything Ioka wanted to do. Ruenroeng basically kept him in the middle of the ring. Kept him in the middle of the ring, used his superior boxing skill and footwork, and just made Ioka look really bad. I mean, it was one of those situations where you sat there and you said to yourself, is Ioka even a good fighter? Because he made Ioka look terrible. I mean, and we've seen Ioka look really, really good. And I'll be honest with you, this is the best fighter that Ioka has fought in like 18 months. And if you look at the guys he's fought, Ioka, they had good records, but they weren't exactly like top shelf fighters. And
well, for the flyweight division, I would consider Yagashi.
Yeah, actually,
a pretty good fighter.
Yeah, but in between then and the Ruenroeng fight, he didn't fight any special fighters. He fought a lot of hand-picked guys. Well, not a lot, about 3 or 4 guys that were hand-picked, that were fluffed up records, that had a world rating. They weren't necessarily good fighters. He beat them, and I'll say outside of the Yagashi fight, I mean, he didn't fight anyone of significance until Ruenroeng, and Ruenroeng made him look really, really bad. I mean, Ruenroeng has incredible boxing ability, like not incredible, but outstanding, IQ. The IQ of Ruenroeng is up there. I mean, he's a very smart boxer. He does everything right. He's fundamentally sound. Like I said, his footwork is really, really good. And he just outboxed him. He thoroughly schooled him. I mean, that was I never. At the end of the fight, Ioka looked absolutely frustrated. It was just everything that he tried to do, he couldn't do, like he did in previous fights. I will say that I don't know where Ruenroeng goes from here. I mean, he'll probably get big fights now. Like, I think one of the fights that he's mentioned that Bob Arum has and Top Rank has contacted him about a fight with Shiming later this year. But Ruenroeng wants to fight his mandatory first and get that out of the way. Probably have a defense back in Thailand, against a mandated opponent by the IBF, and then he'll probably have that fight. But I'll tell you this. The way he boxed, I mean, he's
Shiming wants none of them. Shiming, but I understand Shiming is really being pushed by Top Rank, but given how Ruenroeng beat Ioka, who, as I mentioned before, beat current flyweight champion Akira Yagashi, reunification at strawweight a couple of years back, Shiming can't handle this dude, right? Not right now. No way.
I don't think he'd be able to handle him. I think Ruenroeng is such a good boxer, and he's a good counterpuncher, and he knows how to like. What I found too is he does a lot like Ruenroeng. One of the things he does well too is he takes what's given to him. He doesn't overdo it. If there's an opening, he takes it. That's where I think he was able to frustrate Ioka, because he was doing things to Ioka that Ioka's probably never seen before. Like, he fought such a smart tactical fight. Ioka looked bad. I don't know I don't know where he goes, because that was just completely outclassed. That just showed you right there the difference in class level from these two guys. It may have been a situation where styles make fights, but I'm not sure. Maybe we've seen the best of Ioka. Maybe this is it now. Maybe this is the best we've seen of him, and maybe this is where he probably bottoms out. I don't know, but it was Ioka's camp is talking about a rematch. I just can't see the fight or rematch going any differently.
See, here's the thing. Ruenroeng was the shorter fighter. Ioka had like 4 or 5 inches on him in reach, and yet could do nothing. I repeat, nothing with him all night long. Whatever he tried, Ruenroeng had a counter, had an answer for it. And when you look at Ruenroeng, I didn't know he was this good either. I don't think this is Ioka's done by any means. He can still come and get a big fight. But when you look at Ruenroeng, the last great flyweight fighter was Juan, who long reigned as our flyweight champion. Total combined something like 19 years. You mentioned the Muay Thai style and how it translates to professional style. I haven't seen, be it a Muay Thai fighter or a non-Muay Thai fighter, just a Thai fighter in general, show or fight in the way that Ruenroeng fights, going all the way back to maybe Pon Kingpech back in the 60s.
Yeah, remember
he doesn't fight like a typical Thai fighter, and dare I say, he doesn't fight like a lot of typical Asian fighters that you see. Even with the transformation of the Asian fighter, you don't see too many fighters from that part of the world exhibit that kind of movement, that kind of footwork. And when you talk about styles make fights, I look at this fight, and the first thing that came to my mind was Donaire and Rigondeaux last year. Going back even further, Mosley and Vernon Forrest back in 2002 it was, where you had a guy in Donaire and a guy who was in Mosley, highly regarded, highly decorated, on the verge of stardom in terms of Donaire, on the verge of superstardom in Mosley, and every now and then there's just a guy who's unheralded but turns out to be very good and it fights in a style that could give that top flight fighter troubles all day long. And I agree with you in that regard because I know Ioka's, after the fight, his manager was pushing for a rematch, say he wants a rematch later on this year, not next year. They could fight 10 times, and Ruenroeng, because of the physical attributes, because of his skill, he will give Ioka hell every time they fight.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't think he has the skill, like well, I don't know how good I mean, is there a chance that fighting a lot of those guys that he fought in between the Higashi fight made him lazy and made him take for granted who he was fighting?
I mean, I just don't see what could Ioka do. You see anything Ioka could do to change? Because I don't see what he can do to make Ruenroeng adjust at all. I just don't see it.
Nope, no chance. No chance, no chance, no chance. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible. I just don't see what he could do at this point to make those adjustments. Unless he just had a bad night, but it's hard. To say he had a bad night is just making an excuse for the man. He just got outfought. He got outboxed. He was just everything he did in that fight. He couldn't change the fight. I personally only gave Ioka 2 rounds at most.
I gave him 1.
Yeah, I gave him 2, and even the one I will say that I don't get how one judge had Ioka winning. I don't get that at all.
Again, terrible judging. He needs to be brought in by the WAIBF or the Japanese Boxing Commission. Somebody needs to bring him in and ask him, what were you think? What were you seeing? Watch the fight over him and ask questions. What was you seeing here? What was you seeing there that would give Ioka this bout?
Right, and I feel like, I felt like the man went in his backyard. I mean, I give the man Ruenroeng credit. He went in this man's backyard. Let me tell you something. Do you think they wanted him to win?
Nope.
No, he was there as a scout, and he went in there and he took the man's pride and he stomped all over it. And crazy as it sounds, I respect a fighter that wants to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because that shows that they're a real fighter on the inside, and they're willing to travel, and they're willing to go anywhere to be successful and to have a legacy. And I think that I want to see Ruenroeng again. I want to see him again.
You mentioned Shiming, and I'll say this before we move on about him fighting Shiming. You know, a fighter who I would like to see him in with Estrada, the flyweight king. And given how he fought Ioka, the same problems that he gave Ioka, he give the same problems to Estrada because both fight in the same way. And even though Estrada is improved, one of the most improved fighters in the world, I just don't see how he can it would be hard for him to neutralize the footwork and the hand speed and the skill of Ruenroeng, much in the same way that Ioka had fits with him. Estrada could beat him, but he would be a very, very tough win.
Let me tell you something. Ruenroeng is one of these guys that comes out of the cloth of Juan John. He really does. Because Juan John had all those attributes. He was a very good boxer.
But the thing is, Juan John, even at his best, he didn't move like this guy did.
No, but he had those attributes. The movement, the footwork, but he wasn't as gifted, I don't think, speed-wise. That's the difference. I don't think Juan John is as quick as Ruenroeng. Ruenroeng has all the attributes to be to reign for quite some time. I mean, he's a very, very good fighter, and I want to see more. I want to see more of him, and I hope he gets a little bit more coverage now. I hope the boxing public takes notice. Because it seemed like nobody in boxing knew who he was, despite the fact he was an Olympian. It just shows you that a lot of Asian fighters who are decorated, even if they're decorated, amateurs, they get ignored by the Western media, and it's likely he's been ignored in Asia too, because maybe they saw his age, like 33. What kind of guy what does he have really to offer boxing? But this guy's not a shot-worn guy. He doesn't look 34. He fights like he's 24. He looks fresh. He looks young and energetic. He's not his age. Definitely doesn't fight like his age. I'll tell you that. He looked good. He looked very, very good. Ioka looked, below average. He made Ioka look below. I don't know where Ioka goes from here, but I'll tell you this. I don't think a rematch would be in their best interest.
And indeed. Let's move on and get to the news segment of the show. A few weeks back, it looked like negotiations were very close for a potential bout between current middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And then news broke last that those negotiations basically put to a halt because Chavez Jr. is having issues with Bob Arum in terms of renegotiating a deal with Arum. Get into why the failed negotiations of Chavez. What issues, what beef does Chavez Jr. have with Bob Arum that's ultimately preventing this fight with Triple G from happening?
I think it basically, from what I understand, it has a lot to do with money. Let's just be honest. Chavez Jr.'s stock has really cooled off. He had that brave performance against Sergio Martinez, dropped him in the final round and almost knocked him out. We know that about him. We know how tough he is. We know he's not going to be his dad. We know that. But he's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. And he's gotten better. You have to admit he has gotten better. Not drastically better, but he has gotten better. And it seems like Bob Arum is not willing to put his stock and faith into Chavez Jr. And I understand why. But at the same time, I wouldn't want that man to go over to Al Heyman and Golden Boy. Would you want that? Would you want that? If you're if you're invested in somebody like that, you wouldn't want, and you have a contract with them and you're having trouble negotiating with them. I wouldn't want them to slip away to over to Heyman, because that is a gold mine right there.
You're right.
That is a gold mine right there. That's one market that Al Heyman doesn't have a real stake in. The Mexican market. If you go and if you let him get away and go to Al Heyman, Top Rankings, it could be in some trouble.
And Arum's been thriving on that market for years.
Exactly.
Going back to De La Hoya in the 90s.
Exactly. So what I would do is, in all reality, what I would try to do is, if you don't want to invest that type of money into making a Golovkin fight, at least try to keep Chavez in the fold. At least try to keep him in the company. Work out a deal with him. Try to keep him in the company. Maybe have him prove himself in a couple more fights, and then make that fight. If you feel a little bit more comfortable doing that. You see, the thing with Top Rank right now is, listen, all of their major players are on their way out. Marquez is on his way out. Pacquiao's on his way out. You don't know how long, guys like Provodnikov will keep winning. You got a lot of unproven guys. You got a lot of young guys that really haven't, matured and developed yet.
And Donaire he's still a wait and see. He's still on recovery from his loss to Rigo.
Right, and listen, and I'm telling you right now, Vetyaka is no easy. It's no easy task fighting Vetyaka.
But we're gonna talk about that fight when it comes up.
No, yeah, that is no easy task. So listen, there's a lot of precarious ground that's being, walked on over at Top Rank right now. And they better hope, they're able to keep Chavez, because if Chavez goes, and I've read articles, rumors that he may be interested in going over to Al Heyman. That's why I mentioned it. I've read a few articles about it, and there's a lot of money on the table supposedly, and they listen. If I'm Top Rank, I want to keep him. I would do anything to keep him, to keep that man away from Al Heyman, because if Al Heyman gets into that market, it's going to be a really, really bitter pill for Bob to swallow. Really bitter pill, because Bob has controlled that market for years. Even though Oscar had his stake in there too, has a stake in there too. That market is Bob's market. That's been Bob's baby for years.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I'm just saying that's been Bob's baby, like his market for years, the Mexican market. And I think in a way, what's good about this impending breakup of Golden Boy, which still on the surface seems like it will happen, or it's in the process of happening, is that at least Bob and Oscar working as a team, they can keep that like if say Chavez slips away, which I'm sure Bob is hoping he doesn't. Even with them together as a team, they can still lock down that market, because they both got they're both good businessmen. They both understand the value of the Mexican market, and I think them working together again is great. I think it's great because this is what I truly feel. I truly feel that Al Heyman and Richard Schaefer, they just don't get it. They don't get why these people, like why Oscar wants to work with Bob. Let me tell you something. It's called money. Money. That's what it's called. You're not gonna make money if you cut yourself off from everybody else. I think Oscar realizes that he can't cut off with Bob, because Bob has has a big reputation. He's been in this business over 40 years. He understands the sport. He understands the value of the dollar. He understands what kind of fights people want to see. I think that's great. If they go back to working together, like I'm hearing they are, that's going to be great for boxing. I think we're going to see a lot of great fights. I'll tell you.
Right.
Outside of that, I think Richard Schaefer and Al Heyman just don't get it, and they never will get it, because you know why they won't get it? Let me explain. They won't get it because they believe they can do business by cutting themselves off from everyone else. That's called a monopoly, and a monopolistic practice, at the end of the day, usually ends up falling on its face. Because if you're not doing business with others, they're gonna not, and then all of a sudden you're gonna crawl to them when things are getting rough. They're not gonna do business with you. They're gonna say, "Listen, you shut out when we wanted to do business with you," and they'll say, "Go fuck yourself." That's why I like Bob Arum in a way, because he doesn't cut himself off. He keeps his options open. Okay, he's got a relationship with the Bell. He's got a relationship with Star Boxing. He doesn't burn his bridges. And if Richard Schaefer and Al Heyman thinks they can burn bridges and be successful, God bless them. Whatever. But I don't think what they're doing is going to be successful. I'm sorry I went on that rant, but it kind of ties in with all this stuff going on.
Well, let's talk about Triple G right quick. He's been on a bit of a hiatus due to the death of his father. Say the fight with Chavez Jr. doesn't happen. Where does he go from here? I know people talk about Sergio Martinez. I just don't know if Lou DiBella would put Martinez in the ring with Triple G. This fight he was willing to move up, but they don't seem willing to fight Ward yet. They want to let that potential bout simmer for a bit. Where would Gennady Golovkin go from here should this bout not happen?
Well, from what I understand, the WBA has mandated that Triple G fight #1 contender Jarrett Fletcher. who won an eliminator bout with Max Bursak back in, I believe, February, which was, I believe, the night Golovkin fought, what's his name? The guy from Africa.
Adama.
Yeah, Adama. That's right. Yeah, Osamanu Adama, and and that's the WBA mandate, and he's got 90 days to make a fight with him, and I think that will be his next fight. It'll probably be in what do you call it, in Monaco, probably, more than likely it'll be in Monaco. And I think, what, he's got to keep, listen, Golovkin's got to keep fighting these guys. He's got to keep fighting these guys. Even if they're not the guys you want to get in the ring with, you have to keep fighting them. You have to stay in the busy. You got to stay busy. You got to, just keep fighting and winning. And eventually someone's going to step to somebody's going to step up. But for now, I don't think it's a bad idea to fight Fletcher. It keeps you busy. It keeps you in the ring. Fletcher is, I believe, he's 18-1. His only loss came to prospect Billy Joe Saunders in 2 rounds. That just shows you he's not that good of a fighter. But he did have a win against, like I mentioned, Max Bursak for a WBA trinket, which set him up to be ranked, and that's, if that's the next step, then that'll be the next step, and that's who Golovkin will fight.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned Andre Ward during the midst of this conversation. News broke today, according to FightNews.com, that Ward is putting flyers out there, mentions out there that he wouldn't be against fighting the winner of Rose and Froch 2, provided they come to the United States. I look at this, and of course he would say this. He only has so many options. I was talking to a fighter on Twitter who will remain nameless, that when you look at Andre Ward, that they don't understand. This fighter doesn't. This ex-fighter doesn't understand what Ward is doing. With the fight with Dan Goossen, he should be. This guy was talking to me on Twitter that, and it's kind of connected with Ward, with this report from Ward, this rumor that's being out in regards to Andre Ward, that he should let this go, this fight with Goossen go, and start and get back into the ring, because ultimately he's losing money. So when I hear this today, I think again, what other option do we have? And in saying that, I understand why Ward would do this, but given the position that he's in, hadn't been fighting over maybe 2 fights in the last 2 years or so. Sure, he's the man at 168, but that doesn't mean he's the ultimate decision maker at super middleweight, because I look at this, I like Ward, I'm a fan of his, but who is he right now to necessarily be making decisions on where he wants to fight? I mean, and I say that because he's talking about possibly wanting to Froch Rose 2 winner, but why here when ultimately, if he's smart about it, he could make more money going over there for a fight. And the ultimate question is, why would I understand why he want that, why he would want the winner of that fight, but why is he so insistent on wanting to fight here in the United States?
I don't know, because as far as I check, he doesn't make a lot of money in the United States. Just doesn't. No one's going out to see him fight. When was the last time there was a packed house for an Andre Ward fight? I'll wait a while.
It's like, I'll wait. I'll wait, to quote Cat Williams.
Yeah. And it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's not making, listen, these people, he doesn't get that you don't control the division. You've only fought once in like 15 months. And you think you can demand that people come fight you in your backyard. Well, sir, you have it completely twisted. George Groves will not fight you in the Bay. Paul Frock will not fight you in the Bay. Abraham will not fight you in the Bay. I'll even go further. Stieglitz will not fight you in the Bay. DeGale will not fight you in the Bay. And countless other fighters will not fight you in the Bay. It's not going to happen.
I could see a scenario possibly fighting in Las Vegas if it's Grove. Because, see, if I'm Faraj and I win this fight, why go back there when you lost decisively before? It makes no sense. And as far as Groves win, I could possibly see a scenario where they'll fight in Las Vegas or Atlantic City. But that's about it. I mean, they would be out of their mind if they want to fight in the Bay Area. That's not any super middleweight right now. They will already be disadvantaged because Ward is the we all can concede Ward is the best fighter in the world. But why would they go there when they would not make any real significant money? Vegas, maybe, yeah. Atlantic City, maybe, yeah. But Bay Area, I'm sorry. No disrespect to my Bay Area folks, but no.
No, it doesn't work like that. Listen, Andre Ward seems to forget that his performance in the Super 6 was about 3 years ago, and boxing moves on. It progresses. It moves forward. The fighters who he beaten have all since moved on and accomplished things since then. And I just don't see any reason for this to continue. I mean, for him to keep fighting in the Bay, he's going to have to step out of that. What do you honestly think that George Groves... Seriously, do you think George Groves will even entertain fighting, Andre Ward for like $200,000? No. There's no reason to. There's no reason to entertain it. I'll tell you this: if you called up, Eddie Hearn and said that to him, he'd laugh and hang up. There's no reason to. You do that to the Stieglitz promoter, they'll laugh and hang up. Same with Abraham. They're not gonna sacrifice their foothold in their backyard where they're making a lot of money to come over for chump change. You're gonna actually offer $300,000 to like, or $200,000 to like Abraham. He's gonna go over there, put his belt on the line, have the possibility of getting schooled, and then leave with chump change and no belt. How does that sound? Seriously, how does that sound to people who are educated? Doesn't make any sense. He's gonna have to either leave the Bay, fight somewhere else in the U.S., whether it be AC or Vegas, or fight overseas. There's no in between anymore. You can't keep thinking you call shots. This is not 2011, Andre. It's 2014. Fighters have gone on and moved on and done stuff. And they've moved past you. They're leaving you behind. Listen, to be honest with you, if Andre Ward retired tomorrow, it wouldn't matter to the 168-pound division because they still make money. That's the truth of the matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like I said, I understand why Ward would do such a thing, but to make the demands at this point, I just don't understand. Right now, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Let's move on and start closing down the show and talk about previewing the upcoming bouts this weekend. Main bout, of course, is happening Saturday as Juan Manuel Marquez coming back into the ring following his loss to Timothy Bradley last September, as he will fight a pretty decent bout, I will say, against Mike Alvarado. The fight's going to be happening in Inglewood at the Forum, at the old Inglewood Forum. Fight will be at HBO. Eliminated bout. Your assessment of this bout, because I could get two scenarios. One is that Alvarado, I don't know how much he's recovered from that beating he suffered against Provodnikov, and if Marquez still has it, he should be able to outbox Alvarado. But again, Marquez is what, 40 years old now. He could very well get old. He's old now, but he could very well get really old in this fight, and maybe Alvarado has something in him to exploit that. Your thoughts on this bout? Marquez is the favorite; he should win, but I'm wondering whether when is the time where Juan Manuel will finally lose it all? Will age will really creep up with him?
See, the thing is, I see this as a 50-50 fight. I just don't see a clear winner here. I mean, like,
based on what?
I just think there's a lot of factors. You know, Marquez looked old in his fight with Bradley. He didn't throw enough punches. You know, he kind of was lagging the entire fight. He didn't. You know, he wasn't busy enough, and he insisted he won the fight, even though he wasn't busy enough. And two, I mean, even though Alvarado took a beating against Provodnikov, he's still young, and he's still, you know, he's probably better at 147. And he's probably going to be a busier fighter. He's going to throw more punches. I think it's a very interesting fight. I think a lot of it depends on on either guy. I think if Marquez wants to win the fight, if Marquez wins the fight, he's going to outbox Alvarado. But I don't know if he can do it anymore at 40.
Alvarado has taken a stance of being a boxer. He tried to box against Provodnikov. He tried to box in his he boxed in his second fight with Brandon Rios, but he has the heart of a fighter. Do you think in this fight against the older Marquez, do you think he will come right at Marquez and pressure him and try to force his and try to see what does he have left?
I think that's what I would do. I'd go right after the man. Man's 40 years old. I mean, he didn't look good against Bradley. He looked old. Okay? He didn't look shot or anything. He just couldn't keep up with Bradley. And if I'm a guy like Alvarado, who's a known pressure fighter, you know, he the last couple of fights has tried to box, you know, with varying degrees of success. I would go out there and press the fight. I go out there and pressure Marquez. I would make him fight. I would not get into a boxing match with him because I think Marquez can, you know, not thoroughly outbox him, but outbox him nonetheless. I would come out there and pressure, you know, Marquez and make him fight and see what he has. Like, you got to see what the man has. And if he feels he can take care of business by pressuring him, then by all means, I keep doing it. Because I don't think, to be honest with you, that Marquez can outbox anyone for 12 rounds like he used to in his prime. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be a very close fight. It's going to be an intriguing fight. I think it's going to come down to who's the busier fighter. And I kind of lean towards Alvarado. He's going to be busier. He's going to throw more punches. I think he's going to pressure Marquez. I think he's going to go in there and his pressure may steal rounds. It's going to be a very close fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Alvarado won a very nip and tuck decision. I wouldn't be surprised if Marquez won a nip and tuck decision. I wouldn't be surprised if Marquez outboxed Alvarado thoroughly. But I just don't see it that way. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I'm going to lean with Alvarado by a close decision.
I'm basing this on the fact that I still think that Marquez is the overall skilled fighter, better scout fighter with the skills. So I'm going to go with Marquez in this fight. But you're right. You have a point. You bring up some very good points. We just don't know about Marquez because he's, let's face it, he's 40 years old, you know. You just, coming off of the loss with Bradley, you just don't know what he has left. So even though Marquez, I'm going to say he has a really good chance to win going in. I could see definitely a scenario where Alvarado could take the fight to him. I think he should pressure him. I think he should make it a physical fight with him. I think he should make it a fast-paced fight with him and just see what Marquez has left. And if Marquez does it, kudos to him. But again, Alvarado, he could give him a lot of trouble in this bout. I think on that note, we're going to start shutting this show down. For those who want to talk that boxing, you know what, that boxing ish, what you can't, tell them where they can reach it.
Okay, you can reach me at facebook.com/kent.airs.1. You can contact me. I'll definitely talk if anybody wants to talk about, my opinion on the Marquez Alvarado fight. They may do so if they don't agree. And I just think personally it's one of those fights where a lot of people are going to say Marquez is going to win. I just don't feel that way. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, I'm a Marquez fan, and I don't even feel 100% sure he can win the fight. So that just tells you right there, how I feel. But definitely, if anybody disagrees with that, my prediction of the fight, you can definitely contact me. I'll address it, and I'll give into more detail what I mean. And that's it. I hope you all enjoy the fights this weekend. Support boxing. Continue to question boxing, because you know what? We've had some odd decisions lately. And I think we need to get on there and still keep pressuring these guys and to realize, what's going on, to really look at the officials. And I think that's a good thing. Like, I'm going to just state that there's also an article out there about the Belmonte's Figueroa decision. And I think a lot of the scrutiny by fans has made officials look into it deeper. If you go on Fight News, there was a study done by different judges how they scored that fight, and I think that it's very, very important right now for fans to keep scrutinizing these officials. Scrutinize them. Don't leave a stone unturned. We have to question boxing, especially on the officiating front. We need more transparency there, and I think everybody should keep doing that. Keep questioning when there's a bad result or head-scratching result. Question it. Don't not say anything. Please say something. Let it be known. Let your feelings known.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to reach out to me, there are a couple places you can reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Twitter, at BrotherJR, or you can reach out to me at BrotherJR on Twitter. And again, if you want to find pound for pound boxing reports, links to where to find us all over the internet, all over social media. Two main places you can go. You go to the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. You can also go to the podcast page, p4pboxingreport.podomac.com, where you can find past episodes of the show. The blog has written by yours truly, and you can find all the links to find us all over the internet, all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, G+, YouTube, the RSS feed, Pinterest. We got a Pinterest board, the link to donate your account. So please do that. Please follow us. And please keep continuing to support us. Again, this has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Box Report. I want to thank you, Kent, for being on with me again this week. For my co-host, Kent, I'm your host, Michael. You guys have a good evening. This has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Box Report. Good evening.
Good night.